Hello and welcome to Newsmakers for this Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. I'm Louie Butko, and on today's show, we're taking a deeper dive into Canada's Food Price Report 2025, which forecasts food costs and trends heading into the new year and offers Canadians a guide to navigating the evolving food landscape. And to do that, I'm pleased to be joined by the project lead from Dalhousie University. He's also the senior director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab and the co-host of the Food Professor podcast, Professor Sylvain Charlebois. Professor, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to get into the report in just a second, but you and I were just talking before we came on that people will be going to the grocery stores in the next few weeks to pick up what they need for a holiday meal. That includes their turkey, that includes their breads and everything else. What will they be looking at when they get to the grocery store? What might surprise them?
Well, if you're into turkey, actually, there is some good news this year. If you actually look specifically at the traditional Christmas dinner, we actually believe that that dinner this year is cheaper than last year. Potatoes are down 20%. The bird itself, turkey, over Thanksgiving a few weeks ago, we actually saw turkey being priced at 99 cents a pound in many parts of the country, which is something we've never seen before. So if you're into turkey, you should actually be paying less compared to last year, which is good news. For ham, it's likely to be higher, but if you're into roast beef, that's the bad news there. Beef is absolutely more expensive than last year. So it depends on what you're preparing for Christmas, but everything else for the next year or so, 12 months from now, your bill should be higher than what you paid for in 2024.
Now, we're going to get into, like you said, the 2025 report, but the last few years, of course, have been pretty insane when it comes to inflation, and not just at the grocery store. What have you noticed this past year, maybe compared to the last previous years? Before we look ahead, let's look back. Was this year a little bit less than you thought? When you look at 2024, what did you notice? What stood out to you?
Yeah, so 12 months ago, we were predicting the food inflation rate to be anywhere between 2.5 to 4.5%. So we landed at 2.8%. So our predictions were accurate, but we felt that 2024 was a bit of a break. The problem is that people are showing up at the grocery store with less money in their pockets. And so they are frustrated, and now a lot of consumers are just trading down mostly. So what we've noticed last 12 months is that people are more frugal. They're more informed about prices. They walk away from a product if they think it's too expensive. So grocers are actually adapting. They're seeing their customers going to different places they've never been before to buy food, non-traditional stores. So loyalty is the battleground right now in the sector, just because a lot of people are just not loyal anymore.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I used to be a Zehrs regular. That Zehrs is one of our big Loblaws grocery stores.
You're in Zehrs country. That's
exactly, right? So I used to be a Zehrs regular, and then I got enticed by the points at Sobeys, and now Moi Rewards with Food Basics and Metro. Let's talk a little bit about those loyalty programs, because how important are those when it comes to making sure that customers either stay with you or keep coming back, and targeted deals for those points programs? Obviously, when you're scanning your card, they're getting a lot of information about what you're buying, your purchasing habits. You're kind of doing that little trade-off, right? And maybe people aren't aware of that. But how important is that to grocery stores, those rewards programs?
I'd say to you viewers, take advantage of them, because even if you don't like loyalty programs, they've changed in the last 6 months. All of them, because they actually want your business. They want you back in their stores. And you're absolutely right, Louie. I mean, all major grocers have actually changed their loyalty programs. They're much more generous than before. Moi from Metro, which was designed a little less than 2 years ago, Empire Sobeys with the Scene program, and PC Optimum by Loblaw, all three of them are way more generous than just 6 months ago. So you can actually leave a lot of cash on the table if you don't take advantage of these loyalty programs. So get acquainted with them and take advantage of them.
Yeah, I mean, they got to get you to open the app, right? They have flyer deals specifically. Like, listen, when you and I talk elsewhere, we're usually talking about points and things like that. But it is so important because, you go to the grocery store, you talk about people trying to save money. The 50% stickers. I love the 50% stickers. I got nothing wrong with things that are about to go bad, stocking up.
Oh, those enjoy tonight deals, absolutely.
That's a huge part. How big are those when it comes to not just saving people money, but when it comes to food waste? We've talked about that before, too.
Yeah.
The amount of food that's been thrown out. How much better are grocery stores doing because of programs like that?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, there are always deals. A few years ago, I always went to that obscure place at the grocery store where there were some products that were half price because they were about to expire. I'm not alone anymore. A lot of people go to those shelves, and those shelves aren't necessarily in an obscure place at the grocery store. You can actually find them very easily now. So, because grocers know that we're looking for these deals. But this year in Montreal, I know it's far from you guys, but in Montreal, there's a new chain of grocery stores only selling expired food. Imagine expired food that is past their best before date. And those 4 stores, you got 4 stores in the Montreal area. All of them are packed with people. So because you can get deals, 50%, 60%, 70% off. Like, why wouldn't you want to take advantage of those deals? I would if I were in that Montreal area. And anybody listening to us in Hamilton, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to help people start a business like that, there's an opportunity there.
We've also seen Loblaw. We've here in St. Catharines in our viewing area. They have one of the new ultra discount no name stores. So yeah, absolutely. We've seen grocers going after that. Let's talk about the 2025 Canada's Food Price Report. This is the 15th year you've done this. What's the purpose of this? Why is it important to put this out every year?
Well, I started it when I was in Guelph. Started with Francis Tapon, who's an economist. He's retired now. And in 2008, 2009, we felt, I think it's important for people to understand how food pricing works, because a lot of people will actually look at grocers as being the ones setting prices, and that's it. And that's why there's a lot of accusation of profiteering these days. But we wanted to actually help Canadians better understand how prices actually work. And of course, we want to help Canadians to budget over the next year or so. And so it started off as a pet project in 2009. And now today, our report is read by almost 600 million people every year. It's worldwide. So we get requests for interviews all around the world because of this report. So we're pretty pleased with our report, and it's actually quite accurate most of the time. So in the last 10 years, it's been accurate 7 times. We actually underestimated inflation twice and overestimated it once. So we're doing okay. But essentially, the report is really about getting Canadians to think about food and the economics of food in general.
And you mentioned this, the coast-to-coast nature of this. You in Dalhousie, University of Guelph, University of Saskatchewan, and the University of British Columbia. Obviously very important for this collaboration because prices in BC are going to be quite different than prices out east.
Oh, absolutely. And so as lead author, my job is to sit down with all 4 campuses every year, and they gave us their forecasts, and they use their own methodologies. And most of the time, they actually do use AI, which is a very powerful tool. Some of them actually will use econometrics. But the bottom line, Louie, is that most of the times, all 4 forecasts are very different. They're very different. So my job is to actually get to some sort of consensus amongst the 30 authors that we have involved in the program. And that's what gets published, basically. And it was released last week.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone to download it. It's not a big read. It's about 30 pages or so, right? Lots of graphics, lots of big quotes. So I appreciate it, especially interviewing you here, having it in front of me, being able to look up and look down here. But let's get down to the numbers here. You guys are predicting that groceries are going to cost for the average family of 4 about $800 more in 2025. Where do you see those increases happening more particularly?
Yeah, so two food categories are attracting our attention for this year, and one is meat, and two are vegetables. The meat play is a bit complicated because you got the meat trifecta: beef, pork, and chicken. Beef prices are really a problem. I mean, if you're a beef lover, 2025 is not going to be your year, unfortunately. Sorry, but the thing is, our beef herd size is the same as it was in 1987. And we got 15 million more people in this country. So supplies are just not there. In the U.S., it's even worse. Their beef herd size is actually the same as it was in 1951. So it's a huge problem, and a lot of producers are just cashing out. They're not coming back, and we don't know when things are going to turn, and it may not actually be in 2025, unfortunately. Pork is going through an upcycle. China stopped buying pork a while ago, but now the industry recalibrated, so we're expecting prices to go up again. So if you're into ham over the holidays, you should expect to actually pay a little bit more. And chicken, it's the avian flu. The avian flu is really the tricky thing actually impacting the industry right now. And for vegetables, that's the dollar. So this week, the Bank of Canada will likely reduce its benchmark rate by 0.5 point. Good news for mortgage holders, bad news for importers. And we do import a lot of vegetables from the U.S. in particular. So we're going to have to pay more to get the same amount.
Yeah, like you wrote in the report here, beef prices increased by 9.2% from September 2023 to September 24. And you mentioned about the Canada's cattle herd, the smallest since 1987, and in the U.S., more pronounced with the smallest cattle inventory since 1951. What's the incentive to farm cattle right now? What can we do to make this a more competitive industry? Is there anything that provincial governments, federal governments can do to get people to have more cows?
Well, I mean, you have a federal government right now, supporting and subsidizing the construction of cricket farms. So I'm not sure there's any will to increase our beef size herd, but I would say that lower interest rates will actually help the industry because it's a cash flow industry. And so my guess is that younger producers will start seeing opportunities here at some point, and that's when you'll see probably feedlots grow bigger out west and in the United States. But until then, it's going to be really tough. And we all know that beef in general is not consumed as much. It is a premium product right now. And 50 years ago, beef was indeed a premium product. So we're going back to where things were about 50 years ago. I'm just hoping that things actually will be under control. Even ground beef went up 15% this year. Ground beef is probably the one source of animal protein that is actually affordable, but now it's gone up as well.
Yeah, those kind of increases. You mentioned it. People are going to the grocery stores just with less money to spend in the first place because rent is going up. And, usually grocery stores that either end of the week or beginning of the week purchase that you budget the most. And a big portion of this report mentions that. Food insecurity. And, we see the food bank reports that come in year after year, month after month. It's heartbreaking to know, the people that are relying on food banks just keeps going up. What have you made of this, and what can help people? How can we get people to stop relying on this? So I know it's a difficult question. It's a big question, and if we had the answer, we'd start right away. But where can we start?
When you look at the data, there's something weird going on because in retail, food sales are stagnant. Because people are trading down at the grocery store, but people are going out at the restaurant. Actually, in this December, we're likely going to break the all-time record in terms of money spent at the restaurant per capita in Canada, like an historical high at a 186 per Canadian. My guess, Louis, is that you have two food economies emerging in Canada. You have the food economy for the more affluent and one for the less affluent. And in between, you have the middle class that is becoming more of a working poor class. And a lot of people who go to food banks actually are working, will have 1, 2, sometimes even 3 jobs. So there's something going on here with affordability, especially in Ontario, where numbers are really concerning with food bank visits. I am quite concerned about the cost of living in general. It's not just about food prices, but it's generally about everything in our lives that is costing more. And I'm hoping, and I think right now the GST holiday debate that we're having as a country right now is a good one. I think it really targets a problem, taxes. We should be taxing food at the grocery store, and people don't realize that 4,600 products at the grocery store are taxed right now. And so I'm hoping that the government will actually start looking at this problem, seeing taxes on food as being an immoral gesture by government. That's certainly something that I feel strongly about.
We've talked about just a little bit there, the buying the discounts. If someone needs to save money at the grocery store, what pieces of advice do you have for them to save money, and what should they be doing to make that grocery bill just a little bit less?
Keep in mind that as a consumer, you have more power than you think. You got 20,000 products in a grocery store. You have options. If you actually see a product that's too expensive, walk away, because you'll have other alternatives. Keep an open mind in terms of sources. Proteins is a good example. If you think that a piece of meat is too expensive, just go somewhere else. And proteins are about 40 to 45% of all the money we spent at the grocery store. Look at things like canned tuna, fish and seafood. They used to be very expensive, but if you look at our report, prices have barely changed the last few years. So fish and seafood are actually now more affordable than before, especially in light of what's been happening with beef. So keep your options open as much as possible, and you'll be able to save some money at the grocery store.
Shop around. That's my piece of advice too. There's flyers for a reason, eh? There's those
Absolutely.
apps. Whatever you're looking for, that's the first thing I do. Every Thursday is Flyer Day here, Sylvain, in Ontario. So every Thursday, I open my little
Flyer
flip
Day
app.
everywhere in the country, by the way.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, so I open my little flip app, and if I'm looking for something specific, I type it in there. And again, that goes to loyalty. You got to change your brands every once in a while.
Go for it. If I may, Louie, there are other apps you can use to save money, like Too Good To Go, Flash Food, Food Hero. Grocers will have a deal with them, allowing you to have access to products that are about to expire, and you can save up to 50, 60, 70% just by using those apps. So I would take advantage of that too.
And a little bit of food snobbery can hurt you too, right? It doesn't need to look good to taste good, right? That's also important.
Exactly.
I did want to ask you about the election in the U.S., just real quick, on what kind of impact do you think it would have? We've already had a Donald Trump presidency. What did you notice when it came to food trends the last time Donald Trump was in office, whether it was the renegotiation of NAFTA at the time, then the USMCA, or what do you expect to see in this second term here with Donald Trump?
Well, right now I'm overseas meeting with some economists, and I think a lot of people recognize that in Canada, particularly in Canada right now, there's a lot of Trump hysteria. We need to stay calm here. I actually think that Ottawa is dealing with the Trump return very well. That's my opinion. I think the visit in Florida last week was a good one. We need to keep in mind that we've gone through this rodeo before, and 8 years ago, it was the same thing. There were a lot of talks, lots of noise around tariffs, protectionism, never actually impacted any of the commodities, ag commodities in particular. Now, I'm just talking about food here. I'm not talking about other sectors, but if you stick to food, I think we're dealing with more noise than policy here. And that's why in our report, we do talk about the Trump administration returning to the White House, but we don't see it as a major factor that will actually increase prices, whether in Canada or in the U.S.
As you mentioned in your report, food exports to the U.S. actually went up under Trump. It went from 60% from President Trump, 48% with Barack Obama before him. And of course, the huge inflation has happened under Biden. You know, whatever reasons those were. But you mentioned that inflation under Trump was pretty steady. Doctor,
and I won't name any names, but there are some premiers in Canada advocating to exclude Mexico. Keep in mind, Mexico sells more food to the U.S. than Canada. Just keep that in mind.
Also, they sell a lot of avocados. I know that, too, because I'm a big guacamole guy. And beer. And beer. You gotta love a good Modelo every once in a while, right? Professor, you're overseas. I didn't know that part of it, but I appreciate you making time today for our little show here. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, Professor Sylvain Charlebois, my thanks to him for joining me today. Great conversation with him. You can find the 2025 Food Price Report. Just Google that. Dalhousie's got it. Like I said, it is literally a 36-page. It's bright, it's colorful, and it's got a lot of things that you should know as you head to the grocery store in 2025. My thanks to him for joining me today. My thanks to Laura Brody for directing today's episode as well. And hey, while you're here, why don't you like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast and never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you, including Sportsline with yesterday had a guest host, Andrew Damelin, talking a little Forge FC. So go find that episode wherever you found this show, or just go to chch.com/podcast. One more time, thank you for checking us out. And from all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great day.